Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 88 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 88 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I really hope that you will stick around for a while. If you've been here before, you guys know the deal. I love you deep. I really appreciate your continued support on the journey. Thank you for coming back because you have a lot of different choices out there, and I really appreciate you giving my podcast an opportunity to be a part of your faves. So thank you. Before we kind of dive into this week's episode, I always like to make sure that I set the intention. I want to make sure that we're building this safe space on a foundation that is really strong. And I want to make sure that you know that you are loved and supported. So I want to make sure that we set this right with clarity and love, because those two key pillars are so important to anything that we will do on this journey together. So with clarity, the main thing about that is I just want to make sure you understand, you know what this is about. The Well Done Life podcast is about women. I created this podcast because I really know or feel in my soul that as women, we do not have enough safe spaces where we can just be ourselves, where we can actually have an opportunity to hear each other's stories, learn, share, and grow together. And that's what the Well Done Life is about. So that's why we're here. We're here to elevate each other. We're here to learn from each other because I truly feel that as the foundations of society, we need to have those spaces where we can go and glean into each other, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that we can really be fulfilled, so that we can be poured into, so that we can really live our truly best lives. So welcome to the Well Done Life for that reason. And then my second and probably one of my other more favorite things is love, because, I truly do believe love is the thing. And love is always going to be the root of everything that we do in this space. So with love, I always like to make sure that I want, like I said, you to know that you're loved. So I like to make sure that I send prayers to each of you, because I do feel that we don't pray enough for each other. And I think that when two or more people come together in prayer, great things happen. So I want to make sure that you know that your prayers are magnified by my prayers, and we're all in here trying to make this thing happen. So this week, I really want to make sure that I pray peace over you. I pray clarity over you. I pray honesty over you. I pray impeccable words over you and prosperity over you. I want you to know that there is nothing that you cannot do. Believe me, nothing, absolutely nothing. If you put your mind to it and your energy and your time and your heart into it, you can accomplish any goal that you want. So please know that you are loved and supported on this journey. And that is why we must always have those prayers of intention when we talk to each other, so that we can just make sure that we are reaffirming each other. So this week, like I said, we're starting it off with clarity and love, and kind of going into, I feel like that really ties very nicely back to last week's episode. Episode 87, or the stepping off point, was really, I guess, more so about us being in the time that we're in. I mean, can believe it or not, we are really almost at the end of 2021, and it feels like we just started sometimes to me. I don't know if you guys are feeling that way, but it really is. I mean, this is such a pivotal time, because the end of the year, not just because of the holidays, but it's also a time where we start looking at how we want to go into 2022. And that was what I wanted to do last week with episode 87, the stepping off point. I really feel like this time is so transformative for us that we really have to prepare each other to think about how we want to start to define 2022. And it's not about maybe having the most concrete set plan, because we have talked about how life will force your plan to change. But I think it's important to understand that you have to pinpoint the right resources around you to help you be able to get your goals. And you want to make sure that you have reference points that are going to help you stay consistent on your journey, because like what I talked about last week, I've had many different iterations of myself, and my goals have manifested in many different ways, be it from vision boards, videos, you name it, I've probably done it. And I think that's just something that we all kind of go through on the journey, to try to find what actually is going to work for us. And so I wanted to kind of give you some foundational tips to help you on that journey so you can try to start to feel through some of it. Because it's also, like I said, nice to know that there are people who have been where you probably are right now. I mean, it's not about finding the perfect thing. There is nothing that is perfect. It's all about what is the most adaptable for you, because you're going to go into everything with one idea, but then as life starts to life, you're going to have to pivot, and you're going to have to be able to do that. And if you have the right foundation for your visions and your goals and how you want to achieve them, pivoting won't throw you off. And that's really what I feel like is most important. So I'm going to make sure that I put the link to that episode in the show notes, because I always feel like I said, it's just nice to have it. I really hope that it will help you stay consistent, because I know that has always been a struggle for me. And I think for 2022, if I'm wishing anything for us already, I want us to realize that we deserve to thrive, and that we deserve to leave behind all of the things that we have allowed to hold us back from thriving, to just stay back and realize that in 2022 we can go into this year on our terms, and we can define how we want this life to be, how we want to pursue this goal, because you can achieve, like I said, anything that you want by just putting your mind, your heart, and your energy to it. It doesn't mean that life isn't going to life, because life is going to life, but you are going to be able to achieve your goals, because it's your season, it's your time. And I've talked about abundance. We are still in that season, because we just all have to understand that, the seasons of life can throw you off, can make you feel like you're not going to make it. But I'm telling you, there are many people who have been probably where you are right now, and they have survived and are thriving. And if I could say one word for 2022, honey, it's going to be thriving and abundance. I mean, that instantly made me think of, if you haven't had a chance to check out the not last week's episode, but the episode before that of Insecure, where Kelly, Lawrence goes to Kelly to ask how everybody's doing. And Kelly instantly answered, thriving in abundance. Everyone I know is just living and growing. I want all of us to have that type of experience when people ask about us going into 2022. So that means that we just definitely need to lay the foundation so that we can do that. So, this week, with that, I definitely wanted to kind of take a step back, because I think last week we spent a lot of time talking about, trying to align different vision boards and seeing what works for you. And I shared some of mine that I have done, or some of the things that I have done on my journeys, because yes, I did say journeys. There have been a lot, like I mentioned, a lot of versions of me, and my goals and approach to them have definitely changed accordingly as I have moved through this thing called life. So, you have to be prepared to pivot. And I want you to understand that it's okay for those changes, and I keep harping on it, because I think a lot of times, we are sharing our goals with our friends, and in particular, going to vision board parties and doing all different things, which are wonderful, it's great opportunities for connection. But sometimes you have to be cautious enough to understand that you can't allow someone's ease with maybe a vision board to alter your challenge with that vision board. And let me say that again. You can't allow someone's ease with being able to adapt a vision board into their goals and into their life distract from the fact that you are not comfortable with being able to execute on this vision board plan. And you have to, when that sense of feeling comes up, you have to be willing to pivot and adjust. And sometimes that's not always the easiest thing, because, we want to be a part of the clique. We want our friends to understand what we're doing. And I don't think so that some of us realize that it's okay to pivot off sometimes what your friends do, because finding your path, finding the tools that are going to help you on your journey, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. It really isn't. I mean, no matter how many times each of us put down techniques, my technique may not necessarily work for you, because I don't have the backstory of you to add into it. I don't know where you are on the journey. I don't know how you are about follow through. I don't know how you are. How do you learn? Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? So there's just so many different aspects of you that don't get included sometimes when we think about these one size fits all types of solutions. So that's why I said you kind of have to be understanding of the fact that it's okay if what works for your friend doesn't work for you. The key to that is being able to feel confident enough in yourself to say, you know what, this isn't where I am on the journey right now, and I need something different. And it doesn't diminish the time that you're spending. It doesn't diminish the fact that you're able to share your goals with your friends. It just may mean that you're going to have to take a different approach. And when you take that different approach, it's more so not about trying to fit in with the crew. It's about making sure that you are doing what is going to help you be able to achieve what is for you. And so that's why it's so important that you have the ability to pivot, because when you have the ability to change, that means that you have the ability to grow. It means that there is still an opportunity for you to see the path for you, and you have to embrace that, because not growing means that you're stagnant, and you're obviously not stagnant if you're trying to pursue this side of yourself, if you're trying to, outline your vision more. So you just have to embrace the fact that it is okay for you to say that this is not going to work for you, and start to explore different methodologies that will. Because stagnation is not what we're here for. If I were to say another word for 2022 is no stagnation. We are not trying to be stagnant. We're all on our path to growth. And if it's not benefiting you or contributing to your overall happiness and well-being, then you need to let it go, Queen. Yeah, you just need to let it go. Yep, that's simple. And so I want to take a step back this week, because like I said, you're still on this journey. You're trying to figure out exactly where your goals align. You are trying to, put your vision and make it plain and find out what that really looks like. So I said, well, let's kind of maybe talk about what you may need to do in order for you to really get to that point first. Some things that you may have to go through. And then I'm taking it also from the standpoint that I think back to when I first started to really get clearer about my goals and how I wanted to start to execute things. Because when I first started to become more intentional, more of the mindset of manifestation, or starting to look for different goals and different things that I was trying to aspire to, because I felt trapped and lost and stagnant, I really had to get very clear with myself first. And I know that always sounds a lot easier said than done for a lot of us. But you would be surprised to me that how, when you are getting clear with yourself, how the right book or person can lead you in the right direction to your growth. And so when I think about how I first wanted to get out of the different layers that I was in, especially my stagnation period, one of the first things that I found was a book. And the book that I wanted to recommend to you, because it's the book that I read that if I think about it, really kind of changed my trajectory, is The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. Because like I mentioned, when I first read this book, I was so stagnant. I was super overwhelmed in my life. I was in survival mode with my caregiving, with just survival in general. It was just really all about, at that time, family and working, and I wasn't living. I mean, I was just kind of going through the motions. I was just doing what was necessary to try to avoid any problems. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was cool. And so I felt lost, and I didn't feel like myself. And so I needed to figure out what it was going to take for me to kind of get a jolt. And so at that particular point in time, that book had just come out. And it's a really great book to read. It's a very easy, short read. And Shonda Rhimes, if you're not familiar with her, she is the creator of Grey's Anatomy, How Do You Get Away with Murder, Bridgerton, all these amazing shows. She is such a wonderfully creative woman, and she has just done magical things. And one magical things that she has done is she has become a single mom. I believe she now has, I think it was 3 daughters. I'll have to research just to make sure. And she's out here raising her daughters and trying to get all these shows together off the ground. And at that point in time, when the book was written, it didn't reference anything about Bridgerton. It was more so about her just, doing what she was doing with Grey's Anatomy and everything like that, and trying to balance her children. And I mean, she just sounded like an overwhelmed, stagnant woman like myself, and I totally related to that. And so inside of the book, it talked about how she challenged herself, to have a year where she just said yes to everything. She said it didn't matter if it scared her. She said yes because she needed a radical shift in her life in order to open her up a little bit more. And so the book kind of details her experiences during this radical shift in her life. And it's a really great book because it really shows how she learned to stop worrying about the perceptions of other people and to start living more in the moment and being more present for herself and for her family. And that manifested into greater relationships with her children, a much more improved outlook on her health. I mean, it opened her up to so many new things that gave her the opportunity to really elevate herself as opposed into even more of an award-winning producer, and while not allowing her to get lost in the role of being a mom or that job. It just gave her an opportunity to really develop herself. And I think a lot of times as women, we get into these moments where we feel stagnant and we don't realize it because you just become very comfortable doing the exact same thing over and over again. It's like a routine. And it is not even like a routine, it is a routine. And you forget about the fact that you at one point in time was this vibrant person who was traveling maybe, or who was reading more, who was exercising more, or doing things that helped contribute to your overall well-being. And I think at times we need those jolts with ourselves where we get stuck in a stagnant pool that will help us remember, you know what, you're still this amazing person in here. And that's if you said yes to some things that might scare you, that make you unsure, you would have experiences that could change your life. And it could give you experience that will help elevate you in your career or in your relationships. It just will make you a better person. So I totally would recommend that book because I think one of the things that you need to do, especially going into this time that we're in now, where we are talking about going into unending abundance, you have to maybe ask yourself, is it time for a change? Do I need a radical shift in my life? And if the answer is yes, and you're just now trying to figure out how to get the strength and the courage to do it, or the guidance, then I would totally recommend that you take a look at that book because it definitely, like I said, I saw so many aspects of myself, and I am not a mother, but at least gave me an opportunity to see what it's like when you're trying to manage the responsibilities and expectations of other people, how easy it is if you are not careful, no matter how much money you have, to put yourself on the back burner, and how important it is to be able to recognize that and dive back into who you are by maybe taking a chance on something that you are not 100% certain of, but you would better you if it worked out, so that you can see that you still have it. So that you can see that you can face different obstacles or different challenges that you are not comfortable with and still thrive. So that you can realize that there is just so much more inside of you that wants to come out. You just need to give it an opportunity to come out, and you will be elevated to another level. I think sometimes we need those, especially because having those type of radical shift moments gives you an opportunity when you start thinking about your goals, not to sell yourself small, to give you an opportunity to really stretch into what you really could be. And that's where magic happens. So definitely I will make sure I link that book. And as I'm going through this, because I'm definitely hopefully going to give you some tools to help you on where you are, some keys that can help you on the journey to unending abundance. I will make sure I link everything in the show notes for you. So that way you can check out some of these books and help you. My next my key or recommendation as you are trying to, start to prepare for your journey, start to align your goals. If you are, is the book, The Secret by Rhonda Burns. And I was going to say, if you are on this journey to manifestation or intention, this is the book for you. But I decided not to because I feel like each of us is manifesting or being intentional right now, and that's what we are all looking for. And sometimes you need a reminder of it, or sometimes you just need something, a path to it, and you're not sure, because manifestation and intentionality can be very tricky, and having the right resources around you is very important. I would recommend completely this book, because this book will have you manifesting money in peace, and it's a game changer. And it's a great compilation of stories of how people came to understand and demonstrate manifestation and intention in their life. And it's super inspiring. And it's amazing. Some of the stories are just so funny. And when I first found this book, as I was, like I said, I think I read The Secret for the first time after I had read The Year of Yes. And so it was really a very good eye-opening moment for me. But I guess really what I was going to say is I didn't really read, well, I did read it. This was actually my first Audible book. So I kind of want to pause right there to say, not everything has to be read. Audible is a great resource if you are not an avid reader. And if you are not an avid reader, that's okay, because I wasn't either for a minute. I used to be, but I kind of fell off with life and just got tired. And so at that point in time, when I was trying to overcome my stagnation and become more intentional and get into my manifesting self, I was also not really interested in picking up a book, because I'm like, we have computers now, we have Audible. I really don't need to. But I got hooked. And so I bought my first Audible book, and this was The Secret. And I went through that phase where I listened to it daily, and really I just loved it. I mean, I know a lot of people, some people actually feel that Audible is like lazy reading. I don't. Don't even worry about that. Because to me, it feels like you're having a great conversation with a friend and they're telling you an amazing story. And I know also I tend to be someone who has a really active imagination. So even when I read books, a lot of times my mind can transport me into the book. So I can visualize what I'm reading, and if it describes a room in detail, for example, I can feel like I'm in the room. I can feel those kind of things. To me, Audible plays into that as well. And you're still able to retain information. And The Secret is actually a perfect first Audible book because, like I said, with the collection of stories that you're hearing, some funny, some maybe not, are really inspiring. It's just amazing to be able to feel like you're talking to a whole bunch of friends who all want you to win. So if you're looking for something that will help you, especially in these times where we can feel like we're totally overstimulated by so many different things and you just don't want to make time to read, I would definitely recommend checking out Audible. And it definitely, like I said, the book, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, is such a beautifully done book and is so foundational. I feel like everyone who is on the manifestation and intentional journey should start with that book because it's an opportunity to really give you a chance to connect with other people who are on this manifestation journey and learn how their lives were. It's not like they just woke up today and said, "Ooh, I'm ready to manifest the car. I'm ready to manifest a house." It took work. There was disappointments. There were setups. There were perspective shifts. I mean, there's just so many different aspects to it. And you'll be surprised how you may identify with someone else's story in that book. And it will help you be able to give yourself the confidence to continue on with with manifestation on the journey to intention, because it's not an easy journey. Life will life, as I like to say lately, and it will make you question it, but this book has the ability to reinforce it in you so that you will realize that you're on the right path. And it's funny, I definitely refer back to The Secret often. When I first got very intentional in manifestation, I would listen to the book once a quarter because I just really needed to keep that energy around me constantly. And I am probably going to make sure that going into first quarter 2022 that I pick it back up, because even though I do feel like I've become a lot more intentional and manifesting on my journey, I like to kind of use it as a refresher, because I feel like you never stop learning. And so by having it on Audible, it's a great opportunity for me to easily click through it and to listen to it and just really engulf myself into the conversations and the stories, and it just helps me feel better. So I would definitely, like I say, recommend that one, and that is another key if you are trying to intentionally manifest. So I will put it down in the show notes. And like I mentioned, the stories are just so great. I actually found another one of my favorite authors in that book. Her name is Lisa Nichols. She's included, like I mentioned, in The Secret, and she has a great book that I read actually right after The Secret called Abundance Now. And as a Black woman in particular, I really enjoyed hearing from her, because manifestation is not a concept that I heard about growing up. Being intentional, that wasn't a part of my journey. And so having the opportunity to hear how in her life she was able to apply manifestation really hit home for me. And so I think that to me even speaks to another thing of how important it is to find resources that speak to you. And again, taking that opportunity to be open to hearing something in a different perspective, you will find that you are connecting with other people who can help you on the journey. So don't be afraid to research further, because remember, it's not one size fits all. This is your journey. And so you want to connect with people like that. So I will make sure Lisa's book as well is navigated in there. I'm sorry, not navigated in there, is listed in the show notes. So I'm on the journey to intention, and manifestation. I've learned how to have a year where I said yes to everything, and I did say yes to everything. But I did do a lot in that year, and it was some amazing things. And then I read The Secret, and I have started in being even more intentional in manifesting, tapping even more into my abundance with Abundance Now. And then I also started leaning more into my creative side. And during these times, I had always been blogging on the side of working. And my first blog was called Two Chicks and One Old Lady. And that was my blog about my mom and my sister and I and our experiences. And so I was trying to really tap more into my creative side, and the Well Done Life was actually a part of that vision then. And I was still trying to figure it out and just, get through my fears of how this was going to come to pass. And one book that I came across that had really helped me as a creative tap more into my confidence was Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I've talked about Elizabeth Gilbert in this book on this podcast before, but it is one of my favorite books, especially for people who are creative. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be creative to look at this book, or to read it, but I would definitely strongly recommend it for people who are on the creative journey, because being able to find your own voice and to feel confident in your own voice, in your own thoughts, in your shit, is one of the hardest things ever, because imposter syndrome is real, and you need resources that will help you be able to realize that you got this, and you need to speak to your fear and own it. And that's what Big Magic will do by Elizabeth Gilbert. And Elizabeth Gilbert is an award-winning writer. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And I had the pleasure of seeing her during a tour with Oprah Winfrey. I think it's called Live Your Life Dream. I'm not 100% sure. It's just totally blocking me now. But if I find it, I'll make sure I link it. But I had an opportunity to actually listen to her and speak, and it just was amazing. And she really broke down how, being able to speak to you, important it is to be able to speak to your fear, to be able to own your voice, to recognize that when you have a creative thought inside of you, that thought doesn't just sit there. That thought goes into the atmosphere, because that creativity, that energy is so powerful that you just cannot expect that it's just all going to stay within you. So whether you execute it or not, your thought, your energy, your passion is going to go into the atmosphere. And how you have to be able to tap into your knowledge, tap into the power of the story that you were trying to tell, and be able to own that and move forward with it. And when fear starts to creep up inside of you, because fear is always going to be a part of the journey, there is absolutely nothing that you can do about that. That is because you're a human. You have to be able to speak to your fear. You have to be able to tell your fear that, yes, I acknowledge your presence, but you don't control anything on this journey. I'm the rider. I'm the driver. You're a passenger. I respect you, but I'm in control. Because, baby, being able to speak to your fear, being able to speak over yourself, that hit me so powerfully, because it aligns with being obviously extremely intentional and being able to have manifestation, because you're able to speak a good word over yourself. And so when I read that, it just opened me up to realizing that I was more in control of this thing than what I thought, and how I need to make sure that I speak over myself at all times in order to make sure that I stay consistent on the journey. Because this vision that I have, this baby that I have to grow and to build this vision, let's again, talking about the fact that the Well Done Life was even cultivated when I was reading this back several years ago. It was always in the mix. I just was too afraid to birth it out. It helped push me a little bit further on the journey. And it helps show me that how, if this amazing award-winning author can go through some of these challenges that I've faced, the fears, and come out on the other side, so can I. And yes, she has resources, but it wasn't always easy for her. She's gone through a lot of different segments of herself, but she still made it through. And I was able to glean that and learn from it. And it just is something that has always stuck with me. So I would really, truly recommend it. I tell people who are extremely creative and I see them struggling with certain things or not as confident as they need to be about that book. So it is definitely one that I would recommend for you to check out as well, because we all have a little bit of a creative passion sometimes within us. It doesn't mean that we're all trying to podcast. It doesn't mean that we're all trying to write pods, but some of us are trying to design products. Some of us are trying to just be creative in general and own businesses, or just manifest it so that we're able to move to the next level in our position. You have to own that. You have to own your knowledge. You have to own the fact that fear, it's okay that it's there, but it does not own you. And if you need a guide to help you do that, then Big Magic is definitely the perfect book for you. So I will make sure I have that as linked as well. But when you're on those journeys to being able to speak to your fears, I found that there was another book that really helped me out. And it really, and I'm trying to think, did I read these all in order? And I might have, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not even going to claim that. But they were around the same time, because when I first listened to this next book, it was on Audible, and it was in that same cycle where I just had to have information kind of as I was growing more in my intentionality and manifestation. But this book that I read or listened to, was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I talk about the Four Agreements all the time. And the reason I talk about the Four Agreements so much is because the Four Agreements truly changed my life. Especially as a reformed people pleaser trying to become more intentional and manifest in my life. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz was the book that really set me on the right trajectory, because I never had anyone break it down so simply about how life just did not have to be as complex as I was making it. And I really appreciated that, because it was just so important for me to be able to see it and listen to it so simplistically. Because yes, when I first got it, I listened to it on Audible, and then I wound up buying the book and making notes and just reading it over and over again. I actually used to listen to the Four Agreements once a quarter, just like I did the Secret, because I was determined to take that inside of myself. And if you haven't heard of The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, it's a self-help book, but essentially it is built around 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are that you are impeccable with your word, you don't take anything personally, you don't make assumptions, and you always do your best. And I know that that sounds pretty simplistic, but there are different layers under each of them. Like essentially, let's look at always doing your best. Understanding that you're not always going to be at 100%. Your best might be 60%, but you know what? That's your best, and that's good enough for that moment. And being okay with that, or not making assumptions, because a lot of times our mind constantly racing. We are constantly seeking and listening for what we think we hear versus actually hearing what people say. And so if you stop that, how it can help you be free from the worries and the doubts and the animosities and aggravations that we feel sometimes toward other people because of our thoughts. And that goes perfectly aligned with not taking anything personally, recognizing that the things that people say to you is a reflection of where that person is, and not about who you are as a person. Because most of us are going through life, we are projecting on other people versus seeking to understand. Because if you especially now, I think about it a lot. I hate to say it, there's a lot of hurt people out here. And when people are hurt people hurt other people. And because you want somebody to be just as unhappy as you are. But when you are living a life of intentionality and the 4 agreements, you understand that that's where people may be coming from, and you don't take it personally, because it's not about you, it's about them. And that goes definitely in line with the first agreement, being impeccable with your word. When you understand that people are coming at you from a place of where they are, you don't feel the need to tear them down with your words. You don't feel the need to argue and go back and forth with people, because you understand that. And then at the same time, you also take that impeccability and flip it over to yourself. Because I know for me, I am my harshest critic. I don't ever really need people to tell me where I'm wrong, because I have, as a reformed people pleaser, I have, critiqued myself for always falling short. And I can be that hard person on myself. You stop that mindset, because you're not trying to create a cycle of negativity over yourself. Because remember, in manifestation, anything that you are saying, anything that you are thinking comes to pass, because you're that powerful with your thoughts and your words. So why would you use your word in an unloving manner toward yourself or other people, understanding the power of it? So there are many different, there's more in that book, but that just kind of was like a brief synopsis of it. But I would definitely wholeheartedly recommend the 4 agreements to you on the journey, especially now in these days and times. There is just so much the Lord knows you could take personally out in these streets. There is just so much where your word could not be impeccable. There is just so much where, you could just be triggered. And you have to understand that when you are triggered, or when you are carrying different animosities, when you are negative with your words, those things come into you. You take in what you put out. So you have to make sure that you are very intentional about it. The 4 agreements, it just lays it out so simplistically about how those things, if you do them, can impact you, and why you would not want to do them. And it can really give you a great base and foundation, because those things are going to be important as you are trying to achieve your goals. You have too much of an opportunity to hit your abundance that you can't be distracted by foolishness. So you have to make sure that you are doing things that align with who you are and what you're trying to do. And when you read the 4 agreements, it just kind of helps you give a framework and an understanding of why you have to take that approach in order to help you, and the benefits of it, and even how to apply it with people that you may have challenges with. So definitely, just an amazing book. And so, like I said, I've had many different journeys, many different iterations of me. And then right now, I am really on another journey. I am about to enter prayerfully my last year of the 40s. This is going to be my 49th fine year, and I'm very excited about it because for me, I love getting older. I feel blessed every day that I get another opportunity to be above ground. I think very heavily a lot on my father. You know, he passed young in his early 60s. And I also think of my namesake, his mother, and how, I feel like if I feel like I am her all over again. Um, and just with a whole new set and opportunity in this life. So I feel great every time I get older because I'm getting more time than she got. My dad's mom passed away in her early 40s. And so she was 45. So I feel very blessed that I have been given the opportunity to see even more years and to live. And so this point in my 49th year, I am really on this journey of, preparation for my next evolution. And so I find myself right now really drawn to information related to making sure that I am prioritizing my boundaries, that I am prioritizing myself better, that I am working on becoming even more comfortable with the woman that I am. And I will preface this by saying that, when you're in your 40s, I think the 40s are the time where, as women, we typically start to evolve and become more comfortable with who we are. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, those are the fuck it 40s, and then you get to the fresh out of fuck 50s. And I can't think of another way to say it without cursing, so I hope you're not offended. But it is so true. It's just like you are just so fresh out. I'm just fresh out. And so right now I find myself, really making sure that I am prioritizing my boundaries and getting myself more aligned. So I recently came across this wonderful doctor. I believe it's Dr. Nedra Glover Tawwab. I happened to see her originally on an episode of the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith and her daughter and her mother. And let me preface it by saying I like the Red Table, but I'm not like overly obsessed with the Red Table. But when I saw her having a conversations on boundaries and finding peace and how to reclaim yourself in the guide, I was like, I totally was sold, because at that particular point in time, I was just like, I feel like I just need to reassess some things for myself and just make sure that I have my boundaries in place and as it relates to how I want to live my life. Because I've talked about this before, but self-care, it's really trendy. Everybody loves talking about self-care. And self-care can look at many different things. It can be about, massages and getting your nails done and going out to dinner and all those great things. But at the same time, there's also a part of it where you have to work on who you are and where you are in the journey. And one of the recent episodes that I had of the podcast had Tara Pringle on from the Self-Care Suite. And we had an amazing conversation where we talked about self-care and her boundaries. I mean, Tara's boundaries give me all the feels, because I was just so impressed with the fact that she has a spot in her house set up where her children cannot go. And like, if they even try to go, she's like, no. And they understand that no, and they respect it. And it's funny because as I was preparing for this episode, I came across a post that she had on her channel, The Self-Care Suite. And if you have not checked out the episode that I had with Tara, where we talked about the Self-Care Suite and about the need for defining boundaries and setting up self-care and everything, I will make sure I link it in the show notes. You need to check it out. But the post that she posted was, people have a hard time defining and honoring priorities. I see that a lot in my self-care work. It's hard to get women to set boundaries and develop new habits if they're not clear on what priorities they're protecting. And what she says is that, boundary setting is a hot topic right now because boundaries only work if you understand why you need them. What are you protecting? Take a moment to get clear on your priorities, not just those things that you say you value, but the priorities that remain consistent over time. And she lists out a few questions to help define those priorities. And the questions are like, who in my life is most important to me? Hint, start with yourself. With the recognition that I only have 24 hours in a day, what needs to be present in my life every day? And I was like, ooh, that's a deep one right there. The other ones also are, if I'm designing my life from scratch, what does it look like? How would I prefer to live? And then the last one is, where do I feel a longing or urge to focus more intently? What have I been missing that needs to take up more space? And that's deep because if you think about it, most of us are trying to cut out things that need to take out more space. We're trying to get to the thing that needs to take out the least amount of space because we feel like by doing that, it's like freeing us up more time. But in actuality, a lot of times it's not. But one of the key things that struck me and how it ties back to the book by Nedra Glover Tawwab is how we have to talk about getting clear about your boundaries and really prioritizing what that is, looking at what our priorities are. And I believe this book is going to help me do it because it gives you an opportunity to really tap into what are your goals and how you can define your boundaries based upon your goals and your priorities. So I will be reading that over the Christmas break, and I'm very excited. I just got it. Like I told you guys earlier, I'm like on a book mission, and this book is on the New York Times bestseller list, and I'm going to make sure I do try to link that Red Table Talk episode in here as well, because it was just such a great conversation. And to talk about setting boundaries and being able to prioritize yourself, I think you would definitely enjoy it. But I want to make sure that you take that time, carve out some time for you. Let me just say it that way. Take that time, carve out some time for you to get clear about your priorities. And so, because one, how are you setting goals for yourself if you have not clearly defined what matters to you? Because if your goals don't align to what matters to you, are you really going to be able to work hard to achieve it? I mean, it's that simple. If your goals don't align to what really matters to you, are you really going to work that hard to achieve it? Because you know you're going to have to put in work. I mean, it's not like it's just magically going to happen. Even with manifestation, it takes work. So you have to make sure that your goals align to what truly matters. And so once you figure that out, then at the same time, what matters, then you can set the boundaries that are going to be necessary to help you maintain the peace on the journey. So it's like it all goes hand in hand. So I really want you to make sure that you give yourself the space and time to be able to do that. So I hope that a few of these books that I'm referencing will give you some things to think about. There's tons more that I could definitely share with you. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. Like I told you guys, I've been on kind of a book reading journey. And it's funny, I think I read you guys even one that I had discovered during the year that I carry in my purse. Yes, I do carry a book with me in my purse every day, but I literally carry a Warrior of the Light by Paulo Coelho in my purse every day. And when I'm feeling stressed out, I always flip to a portion of it because it makes me feel better. It just does. It's like it hits right on time. And I totally have to give all credit for that to Jonathan Majors. He's recently in The Harder They Fall on Netflix. And he is also going to be Kang the Conqueror in Marvel. In the Marvel Universe, Kang the Conqueror, the most badass villain next to Thanos. So, yes, y'all know I'm a Marvel nerd, so I can weave it in no matter what I'm talking about. But yes, I did. But again, he referenced how he carries his book with him as a guide, and I tried it, and I love it. It really is just that good because there's moments where I can just flip to something, which is what I'm doing now, because of course it's the perfect way to end out. To kind of show you that when you find the right resources can just speak to you when you least expect it. So, reading a passage that I just flipped open to from The Warrior of the Light by Paulo Coelho is a warrior of the light is always vigilant. He does not ask anyone else for permission to wield his sword. He simply takes it in his hands, nor does he waste time explaining his actions. Faithful to God's decision, he gives his answers in what he does. He looks to either side of him and identifies his friends. He looks behind him and identifies his opponents. He is implacable with treachery, but he does not seek revenge. He merely drives away the enemies of his life, never fighting with them any longer than is necessary. A warrior does not try to appear one way or the other. He simply is. See, when you find those good resources, in that, it just speaks to you. In that passage, that clearly identified what we were talking about with the 4 agreements, because I'm not arguing with the soul, remember? You're always impeccable with your word. You see people for what they are, and you accept them for who they decide to be, and you keep on going. That's the key and foundation. That's the kind of thing that I want for you. So don't be afraid to tap into different resources, because that means that it'll give you the support that you need while you're on the journey, because this is that stepping off point, but there are so many different keys that will help support you as you're going through it. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. I hope I gave you some insight with some of these books. I will make sure that I have everything linked in the show notes for you, so that way you have some reference points. I know that we are going into Thanksgiving. I'm really excited about that, because it'd be nice just to have some time with my family. So I'm setting that foundation and believing that each of you will have that same thing going into the Thanksgiving a week as well. Have some time with your family. Enjoy it. I'm going to be back next Sunday with a new episode, but try just to think about, what book you may want to try to read during Thanksgiving. I know it's hard with a little bit with our family and friends, but hopefully you get a little bit of time during that weekend. Hopefully you're off work a little bit and food is being cooked, and you just have a little bit of downtime with family and friends to just give yourself a little bit of space to feed into you. Because remember, you are so worth it. And I am so believing beautiful, great, amazing things are coming for you, because this is our time. And I know that we are going to do this together. So I look forward to talking to you next week. Everything will be in the show notes. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and have lots of good food, good friends, great family, lots of love, hugs, and laughter. And I will talk to y'all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.